Hi, I'm Gena. Today, I'm going to be walking you through the course Speedrun, Mining Your First Business Process, available on learn.palantir.com. This course focuses on machinery, which is a process optimization tool in Foundry that allows you to identify bottlenecks and other inefficiencies within your organization's processes. Before we get started, a quick word from our founder.
Discover how Palantir customers unlock more value from Foundry and AIP thanks to our live instructor-led trainings. We are Ontologize, a group of former Palantir engineers who love teaching. We've trained thousands of Palantir users at leading organizations around the world. Unlock the full potential of your Palantir deployment by going to ontologize.com.
Starting from learn.palantir.com, you're going to navigate to Courses and scroll down to Speedrun, Mining Your First Business Process. Make sure you're logged in and registered. So let's start by going through the overview, which includes the course introduction about what machinery is and what this course entails. Next, you'll see some information about permissions and help, what permissions you're going to require. Something to note is that machinery is actually in beta, and so it might not be available on your Foundry instance by default. If it's not, you're going to have to contact your organization's administrator. Next up, we have some information about the use case. Today, we're going to start by ingesting data assets, create objects in the ontology, mine the existing logs that we have, and then visualize and interact with the process. Now, we're going to start with the project setup. Here, there are some instructions for creating a Foundry Learning project, but if you already have a project for your learning, you don't need to do this step. However, regardless, you should definitely create a course-specific folder for this training, so we're going to begin in Foundry with that step. So starting from Foundry, you're going to navigate to the files and go to projects, and you can search for your existing project. If you don't have one, of course, you're going to have to make one. So mine is called Gena Learning Project. So you're going to click into that. So from here, you're going to hit New and make a new folder. And this one's going to be called Speedrun, Mining Your First Business Process. And this is where our files are going to live. So next up, of course, we have to upload data. So we have 3 data sets. We have the claims, which is going to correspond to the process entities. And so those are the things that are actually undergoing the process. Next up, we have the logs. Those are the state transitions that the process entities are going through. Finally, we have the customers. And so we don't technically need that for machinery, but it is a useful asset to keep around and also gives more context to the claims. So there is an option here to add the data sets by marketplace, but you only really have to do that if you don't have permissions to upload data sets to your Foundry instance. I'm just going to download these data sets and then upload them. Next up, we're going to upload the data. So we're going to hit New, Upload Files, choose from the computer, and grab claims, customers, and claim logs. And choose Upload as Structured Datasets. Take note in the data overview that you're going to need to change the schema a little bit. So the claim column is going to be parsed as a date-time type, but you're going to want to change this to a timestamp. And so that's the first thing that we're going to do. Note that if you don't do this step, your ontology syncs may fail. So from here, we're going to go into claims. And we're going to go to claim date, which you can see has been read in as a date time. So here, we're going to hit Edit Schema, go back to claim date, and where it says date time, we're going to change this to dates and times. And we're going to change this to a timestamp, but we have to specify the format. And so you're going to select this one here, and the type is timestamp, that's correct, and then hit Apply, and then save and validate it. Now that we've uploaded our data, we're ready to move on to creating objects in the ontology. We're going to be creating a customer object, the claim object, and then creating a link type between the customer and the claim. So now back in Foundry, you're going to hit Control-J and search for Ontology Manager. So you're going to click on that. Now, you might have to do this on a branch depending on the permissions that you have in your organization's ontology. So if you do, you're going to go to Main and then create a new branch. And take note, if you do that, you're going to have to merge your proposal into the main branch. Now, if you don't have to create a branch, you're just going to go to New, Object Type. Now, you can continue without a data source, but in this case, we have to use an existing data source. So we're going to select a data set, and we're going to search for claims. So this is my claims data set. And now I'm going to hit Next. So I'm going to rename this here and you'll see the plural name gets updated too. And I'm going to prefix this with my name, which you should do in case you're sharing this stat with other colleagues who are doing the same exercises. And then you're going to hit next. Now, the primary key should be the claim ID, and the title key should also be the claim ID. And then we're going to hit next. No need to generate any action types, and then we'll hit create. Now, we don't have to save yet because we still have another object type to add and a link type. So from here, we're going to go to New, Object Type, use an existing data source. We're going to select a data source, and it's going to be our customer. And now we're going to hit Next. Now let's rename this and prefix this with your name again, and then you're going to hit Next. Now, for the primary key, this should be the customer ID, and for the title key, it's going to be name. And then you're going to hit Next. No actions needed here, and then create. Now, finally, we're going to make our link type. So you're going to go to New, Link Type. We're going to do a foreign key relationship, given this is going to be one-to-many. One customer could have many claims. And then we're going to hit Next. So on the many side, this is going to be claim, and the foreign key is going to be claimant ID. Now on the one side, it's going to be customer. And then now we're going to hit Next. And then there we have our link. So here we're going to submit. And then finally, we can save this whole thing. So now that we've created these ontology entities and saved them, we're going to move on to the process mining step. In this section, we're going to use machinery to mine the claims process from our data. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to navigate back to our course folder. So I'm going to hit Control-J and search for Speedrun, your first business process. And now from here, I'm going to hit New, and you're going to search for process. And so this is how we're going to create a new machinery process. So you have two choices here. You can either implement a process or mine an existing process. And so you're going to use this one if you already have a log data set, which we do. And so you're going to choose this option. And now we're going to select the data set that has the logs. So we're going to select Foundry dataset, go to recent files, and you'll see it in your folder. So we have claim logs, which is going to be our logs dataset. And then hit select. And now you're going to hit next. And now we have these required log fields that we need for machinery to be able to work. And so we're going to be mapping these mandatory fields to the columns that we have in our data set. So here, the process ID is going to be claim ID. The state is going to be new state. The timestamp is going to be, of course, the timestamp. And now we're going to hit next. Now here we have to define which object type this process acts on. Note that here you could actually create your process object from a data set at this point, but we've already created our process object, that is the claim, and so we don't need to do that. So here, we're just going to choose the claim, and the state property is the state. And now we're going to hit next. And so we're going to call this claims process. And it's saved in our folder, and then we're going to hit submit. So here we can see the installation of the process, and we're going to wait for that to conclude before we move on. And now our installation is completed, and we're going to hit go to process. So now you'll see that we've had an object type created for us. That's the log object type. And what this means is that the indexing process is now running. Now you'll see the name has changed to process for refinement. So we're going to change this to claims process. And now here in the log object type, we're going to click on this. And so we have to identify the link between the log object type and the process object type. So that's going to be the link between the process log and the claim. And so here, we're going to hit choose link type. And you'll see that this link has already been created for us. So we're going to click on this and then hit done. So now you'll see that this message here is orange, which means it's now populating the object in Object Storage v2. And now that's no longer orange, we can click here where it says initialize process by mining. So we're going to click on this to mine our process. And so here we can see the different states of our process, and they're laid out in a linked and directed graph. So the directed edges of the graph represent all of the state transitions that we derive from our process logs dataset. Now at this point, you might want to go through these states and transitions and make sure that they are expected. So in this case, all of the states are expected, so we don't have to change anything here. Note that if there was a state that was unexpected, you can click on it and remove it, but we don't need to do that in this case. So now taking a look at the transitions, we are informed by the instructions that all of these transitions are expected except for one. We're not expecting the transition that goes straight from submitted to approved. And so that's one that we're not going to mark as expected. And so to do this, we're going to hit select expected transitions. And we're going to click that plus sign on all of them except for that one that we don't expect. And now from here, we're ready to save. So we're going to hit save. And then to make sure we did it right, we can hit view. And now we can see our approved process. And so you'll notice that this transition is gray because it is not expected. And so the last thing that we might want to do is the process log object was automatically made. And therefore, it's not prefixed with our name. So if you're going to be sharing this stack again with a number of colleagues who are doing the same exercises, you may want to rename this with your name. So I'm just going to put my name here and then hit save. So now that we've mined our process, we're ready to build an application around it and further explore this process. So in this section, we're going to set up a workshop app, do some deeper exploration of the process, do some customization of the workshop app, and then create an alert. So now from here, we could actually just make a new workshop and then embed the machinery graph from there. But we can also make our application straight from this view. So to do that, we're going to go to Modules, Create Module, and this is going to install a workshop application. So now once you see this green toast, you're going to hit View. And now we're in Workshop. So this is a workshop app that has been created for us. And you'll see that it has some filters. It has the Process Explorer, which is the special machinery widget. And then it has this table where we can view these filtered processes. So let's take a look at what we're seeing here. So here in each node, we're seeing every state, of course, and we're also seeing some default metrics associated with each state. So the number of claims that are in this state, the average throughput time, the average duration, and then on the edges, we're seeing the average lead time. So now let's explore the things that we can do using this widget. So you're going to start with this split arrow at the top. So you're going to go click on that. And so this allows us to flip between our expected graph and the full graph. So you'll see that when I toggled here, it added in another edge between submitted and approved. So that's that gray one that we see going all the way through here. Now we also have the option to make the slider range minimum graph on the left and full graph on the right. So if I select that one, so now we've changed the slider so that minimum graph is on the left and full graph is on the right. And now we can change which transactions we're filtering out based on some sort of metric. So right now it's number of transitions, but we could change this to, say, average lead time. And so when I drag the slider all the way to the left, you'll see that I only have the path with the largest lead time. And now if I take it one notch to the right, it will show the path with the next highest lead time. And then if I keep going, we'll keep adding more paths. And then finally the full graph. So from here, let's go to this configuration icon. And here, we can customize the metrics that we're seeing on the nodes. And so by default, we have average throughput time, count, and average duration. Now, note that average duration, you'll know that it's much larger than average throughput time. That's because those are the objects that are still in this state. And so let's also add max duration. So include metric and hit max duration. And so you'll see all of these nodes now have max duration. Now, if we take a look, all of these max durations are quite high. But the node that has the highest max duration by far is under investigation. And so this might be alarming to us. This might mean that claims are getting stuck in this phase. So this is how we customize the metrics for the nodes, but note that we can also customize the metrics that we're seeing on the edges. So if we go to edges, right now we're showing average lead time. So now instead of displaying average lead time, we're going to want to look at number of transitions. So now we can see here that 266 claims are entering this state, but only 16, so 9 plus 7, are actually exiting the state. So now we might wonder, why does a claim go to that state? Now, the course sets up a scenario where you're going to go ask your team that, but while you wait for them to get back to you, you want to start keeping track of what is going on here. And so what machinery allows you to do is set expectations. And that's how you're going to identify states that are having some sort of trouble. And so now we're going to right-click and set expectations. Now in the course, they're going to suggest 250 hours. However, our numbers are going to be very inflated because we're doing this course months or weeks or sometime after the data has been generated, which means these state numbers are going to be very inflated. And so instead of having the max average duration be 250, I'm going to set this to 2400 and then hit save expectations. And so you'll see now under investigation has turned red. And so to understand what's happening here, we're going to toggle the legend view. And I'll also get rid of this view here so we can see. So here we can see a legend based on expectations. And so if it's red, it's breaking expectations. If it's green, it's within expectations. And so in theory, we could add colors to all of these, whether they are meeting expectations or not. Now remember, in this hypothetical, we asked the team, why does a claim go into the under investigation state? And now they've gotten back to us. And so we can see a claim enters investigation if it qualifies as a risky claim. For that, it must have been raised by a customer who was a high risk at the time. Additionally, if the customer is from the UK, then the claims value must be $250 or higher. However, if from France, the claims value must be $500 or higher. And so now we're going to do some investigation to see if this rule is actually being followed. So now expand your filters pane if it's not already expanded. And now let's add a filter. So we're going to go to add filter, and we're going to add this high risk filter. And so we're only going to be looking at claims that are not high risk. And you'll see that this is filtering our graph. So now, again, we know that customers have to be high risk to be sent to this under investigation step, but it appears that even when we filter for not high risk, 170 claims are still being sent to under investigation, and nobody's making it out. And so to see that in percentages, we're going to click on this guy here and toggle on flow rate percentage. And so we can see that that's 25% of non-risky claims. And again, no one's leaving here. So in this hypothetical, we're going to now report that back to the team and see what they have to say. So in the next step, we're going to add some customization to the workshop app. And so in this hypothetical, the team got back to us and they said, the team investigating the claims has recently changed the criteria that leads them to target and investigate claims. However, the team filling out claims was not made aware. The disconnect between the parts of the process and the lack of communication has led to claims being erroneously flagged for investigation and never actually investigated. And so now our goal is to understand how big is this problem from a monetary perspective. And so to do that, we're going to create a custom metric. So from here, we are in the view mode of this workshop, but we're going to hit the 3 dots or hit Control E to go to edit mode. And so now we're in the edit view. And so here we have our Process Explorer widget. Maybe we can also close the filters pane so we have a little bit more space to work with. And then zoom in here so we have a better view. And so here on the right-hand side, we can see the widget's configuration. And so you'll see here, this is where we can configure the default node metrics. Now, before in our view, we were changing the metrics that we were seeing on the nodes, but just for us. Now, if you want everybody to see different metrics, then we'll have to configure it here in Workshop. So under Custom Metrics, we're going to hit Add Metric. And so now we have this unlabeled metric 2, so we're going to click into it to configure. And we're going to call this one Total Value. And then we're going to give it a description. The description is going to be the total sum of claim values under this state. And now we want everybody to see this, so we're going to toggle on Show by Default. So now we're going to add our aggregation. And so we're going to be aggregating on the process objects, so those are the claims. And then we're going to hit Add Step. In the aggregation that we're going to be doing is a sum, and we're going to be summing the value property. And now, because this is a dollar amount, we're going to want to format it as a currency. So we're going to toggle on numeric formatting and change the base type from standard to currency. And of course, you could change this to another currency if it's not US dollars. And now we can see that that new metric is in our nodes. So we can see total value is displayed in each node. And from here, make sure you save your work. So to check that we have this all right, we can see that the total value of claims under investigation is 152,000 approximately, which according to the course is correct. So now, to be clear, that is the value of all the claims that are in that state, but we only want to look at the claims that are actually stuck there, right? The ones that are coming in but aren't getting out. Before we do that, let's also make sure that we've published. We can toggle automatically publish when saving. And then we can go to view mode to have more real estate. So now what we really want to do is focus on that one problematic path where claims are entering that state and not leaving. And so to do that, we're going to click on this guy here. And so we're going to want to select the second path, which includes claims that start with submitted and end, which means they don't leave, under investigation. So we're going to click on that. So now we're only looking at a subset of the paths. And so now that we're only looking at that one bad path where we just end up under investigation and never leave, let's see what the average duration is for claims that are actually supposed to be in this state. And so to do that, we're going to add filters. So we're going to add our high risk filter, our country filter, and the value filter. Now, if you don't want to have to keep adding these filters back in, you can always add them as default filters in your workshop application itself. And so here, we're going to only look at high risk, specifically from the UK with a minimum value over $250. And now you'll see that we aren't breaking our expectation anymore. So we're under 2,400, which was our expectation. Now remember, this is still a very long time, but again, the numbers are pretty inflated because this data could be a few weeks or a couple months old. But again, we are now under expectation, which means the behavior that we're seeing is actually okay for the claims that are meant to be here. And so we'll see the same thing if we just look at France with claims over $500. And so again, what this is showing is that for claims that are supposed to be under investigation, the average duration of those that are currently there is acceptable. So ideally, we don't want to have claims stuck in under investigation going forward. But best case, if it does happen again, we want to catch it early. And so to do that, let's implement an alert automation. And so we're going to go to under investigation, right-click it, and hit create automation. And here we're in Automate, which is an application that allows us to automate business processes. In this case, it's going to be an alerting workflow. So here, we're going to identify a condition, which once met is going to produce an effect. And that effect is going to be a notification. So from here, to modify this condition, we're going to go hit that pencil, hit edit. And so here, this is selecting all claims with the state under investigation. And so what we want to do is we want to know if a claim enters this state, and it shouldn't. The simple implementation here is to be alerted if claims that are not high risk enter this state. So we're going to search for high risk. High risk is no. And that is 170 claims, which looks correct. And now the evaluation frequency, this is going to be monitored live. So whenever any objects meet this criteria, this will get triggered. So now we're going to hit next. And the effect is going to be a notification. And so we're going to be sending one notification for all of the claims that are added that meet this condition. The recipient, we're going to have it be me. And so we're going to make this a plain notification. And the content, so the heading will be non-risky claim has entered investigation. And the message is going to say, a claim that is not risky has entered investigation. This should not happen. And now we're going to hit next. And then next again. And then next. And now we're going to hit create automation. And now we have to save this in a folder because it's a resource like everything else is in Foundry. And now we're going to hit save. And now we're done. And so over this process, we were able to find the cause of claims that were stuck in a pending state. We were also able to measure the problem's impact and flag it to the team and introduce a monitoring solution. Now, in the conclusion, it's going to direct you to the course catalog so you can identify other courses to take after this. And of course, you can provide some course feedback on how you found this course. Thanks for watching. We hope you found this helpful. Be sure to let us know what you want to see next in the comments.